Suresh sir, welcome. I think over to you, Mr. Nachiket.
Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to all, and thank you for joining this session on a Sunday morning. I'm a senior journalist with the Week magazine, and on behalf of the magazine and the Malayalam Manorama Group, I welcome you all on today's webinar. This session is part of the investor education program of the Aditya Birla Sun Life Asset Management Company, along with the Week magazine. We have been doing such investor education initiatives over the years, and we have had many distinguished guests who have shared their stories and their insights to educate people on personal finance and retirement planning. The last 2 years were extremely tough financially for people due to COVID-19. The pandemic took us all by surprise and upended lives and livelihood. Now, as we look ahead towards a better tomorrow, how do we prepare for such uncertainties? How can we become financially independent? How can we save enough for our retirement? These questions more, then today's webinar is for you. Our eminent panelists today will tell you more about financial independence, how to plan it if you want to retire rich and retire early. How do mutual funds help in retirement planning, among many other things. Hopefully, today's session will be extremely insightful for all of you. As always, we have with us Mr. K.S. Rao. He's the head of investor education and distribution development at Aditya Birla Sun Life Asset Management Company, which is one of the largest mutual fund house in the country. An alumnus of IIM Kolkata, he also has an MBA in finance. Under his leadership, ABSL AMC has won the best fund house for investor education by Hong Kong-based Asia Asset Management 4 times in a row in the last 5 years. He has been instrumental in setting up the investor education function at ABSL AMC, whose reach has grown to more than 10 million investors and over 50,000 channel partners. He's won many recognitions over the years, including one of the top 30 India's best finance teachers in 2021. It's our privilege to be associated with Mr. Rao and his team at the ABSL AMC. We also have with us today Mr. Amit Trivedi. He's been a trainer, author, blogger, and a speaker, and has close to 3 decades of experience in capital markets. He's held around 1,400 workshops for mutual fund distributors, trained more than 124,000 participants. Mr. Trivedi's views are very well regarded, and he has published several books, including Riding the Roller Coaster, Lessons from Financial Market Cycles We Repeatedly Forget, Personal Finance Lessons from the ICU, and Investries, Anecdotes from the Financial World. Mr. Trivedi has done extensive work in the area of investor education along with SEBI, National Institute of Securities Management, and various asset management companies. He's also been involved in various projects with NISM, including development of certification programs for the intermediaries. It's a great pleasure and privilege for us to have Mr. Trivedi with us for today's program. We're also privileged to have with us today Mr. Suresh Sadagopan, the director of Ladder 7 Wealth Planners Private Limited, a fee-only financial planning and advisory firm. Ladder 7 Wealth Planners is one of the most respected firms in the financial planning and advisory space in the country, and Mr. Sadagopan is a certified financial planner, chartered trust and estate planner, and registered life planner. Passionate about financial planning, Mr. Sadagopan has authored hundreds of articles and blogs. He speaks at public forums and appears on TV to educate and coach the public about personal finance and achieving financial freedom and creating wealth. He was awarded as one of the 101 top most influential BFSI leaders at the World BFSI Congress Awards held in Mumbai in February 2020. He founded the Financial Planners Guild India in 2010 and is also the founding member of the Association of Registered Investment Advisors. He was on the board of directors of the FPSB India, the CFP certifying body in India between 2013 and 2015, which covers personal finance as well as financial planning concepts for investors. The next speaker we have today is Mr. Suraj Kaile. He is the founder of the Retirement Income Course, an online program his views on investing for your retirement years. Mr. Kyle has had over 2 decades of experience in the asset management industry and held leadership positions with top institutions like Fidelity India, MetLife India Insurance, and Franklin Templeton. His last role was as Group President, Sales and Marketing at UTI Asset Management. Currently, he is doing a lot of work in the area of retirement. We welcome our esteemed panelists. Without much ado, I hand over to Mr. Rao to take this program forward. Mr. Rao.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nachiket, for a lovely introduction to make a start very pleasant. Thank you so much. Indeed, I'm honored to be here among the three gurus. I mean, of course, Teachers' Day we celebrate on 5th of September, but for me, I celebrate little ahead. 2 weeks ahead, I'm celebrating with three great teachers. And incidentally, the topic is of financial independence and retiring rich. And each of them, they themselves, not only they preach, they're also practicing, and probably they are the one who are ahead in accomplishing those that financial freedom. I'm so glad. Thanks to the Manorama team for us every month, at least with one webinar, and we again just back on the ground with a lot of initiatives. I'm grateful, thankful to the entire team of Manorama for taking us. Good morning, friends. Thanks for joining us on a Sunday. I know it's it's a bit difficult to be there on the Sunday morning, but in a good numbers, and we are live on the Facebook and as well as we're on the Zoom, and it's a quite a good, astonishing, and good things to see everyone, and it's on the financial independence. Uh, just 13 days back, we celebrated our Independence Day, and which was the 75th Independence Day, which is Azadi Ki Amrit Mahotsav. I think our Prime Minister calls very nicely next 25 years for our country when we are reaching 100, 2047, which is called Amrit Kal. Probably today, all of us who are in this webinar, if we can plan it rightly, irrespective of what age we belong to, if the next 25 years, if we can understand finance rightly and invest it very rightly and with a discipline, if we follow, that can be an Amrit Kal for all of us, because it's not the markets, it's not the economy, it's the power of compounding, it's the time value of the money which makes us rich. And definitely when nation is growing, we grow doubly. And here today we have prominent personalities. Start with my good friend Amit Ji, who has written, author many books, and we can get a lot from him. And he himself has taken this financial freedom journey, and he himself took that he is retired rich as a capsule, and let me put it the other way around: retire early as a capsule, and later he has added rich to it. And Suresh ji made a number of people, part of his ladder seven. I mean, ladder seven for us, sometimes it's a seven hills for me. People like from Andhra Pradesh, it is a Lord Balaji, who is who is the richest lord in the world, and that's where we can look at, and you can see, and it's one of his wonderful book called it is If God Was Your Financial Planner. And today let us see what is that God can come and give a financial planning to us, and we can have an interesting panel discussion. Post, I have a small presentation to us, and last but not the least, one of our gurus and proponents today, if India and financial, mutual fund industry is witnessing a movement called SIP. We have a huge SIP book which is coming in, which made the market not only stay back and, we stay put, and it is moving. And each of us have seen the value of SIP, and mutual funds sahi hai, but SIP karna jaruri hai. But if I can look at this SIP as a theme, who's the initial proponents and who took it as a mission. I was telling you a while ago, earlier, 25 years back, if somebody is asking, Suresh sir were mentioning to every conference, why is an SIP, and he started his SIP, and it could be a Suraj investment philosophy if I talk 25 years back. Today, it has become SIP in the country. With this, I'll have a quick presentation, and we will have very interesting conversations between the panel. And you have a chat to keep your charts, but I prefer you can give your questions on Q&A so that we can take as many questions as possible. And we also got interesting material to be downloaded, and which is related to the day as topic, and which is related to what is useful. And it's a fantastic versions of the PDFs. If some of you are interested to get hard copies, please give your address so that we can please write to us. We can mail you. We can courier you the hard copy too. And with this, I quickly run through a small presentation. And welcome back, and thanks once again. And it's quickly, this is a topic which we are looking at, financial independence and retire rich and retire early. This topic is coming in the month which we have celebrated Independence Day for the country. We got a social independence, country is into the kind of economic independence, but do we look at our own social financial independence? How many of us are very seriously, when we interact with the people, some of us rich, but we don't validate richness. Some of us, we don't know, we overestimate or we underestimate. That's where a good financial advisor always helps, where you are realistically available. We have three things to talk to you. With all the speakers, these three things is to get what exactly this financial independence. I think, Ruskin Bond wrote in his book called a book on the simple living. And it's he's talking about the richness there. He writes, if you own nothing, then you are rich. Means if you are debt free. A friend of mine, Gaurav Mashruwala, who used to be always on this forum, and he always says, loan nalo, then you are always rich if you are debt free. And I think Ruskin Bond in the same book he wrote, money does not make people happy, but neither does the poverty. The secret then is to have as much as you need, and or maybe as little, but more than what you need. You need to have something more so that you can share with someone. And this is where we talk about retire rich. And there is last time we had the speaker Subra. Who wrote about the book about the retire rich. But let us see what is that retiring rich and retiring early. Is that is possible? Is that is controversial? Or is that synonym? How we can plan for that? And last is how the mutual funds can help us in our retirement planning. I keep telling always mutual funds are your mutual friends. Whatever you plan for your life in the finances, it is like, the day you born, the day we leave. It's we have this A to D in our life. B to D in life, burn to till the end. But the choices we can make, this is where mutual funds can help in every planning, and how we can look at these conversations, we can continue with them. Then there are two topics, Viren. Two, whether it is going to different directions or both of them coming to the same thing. Is it the financial freedom and retiring rich? Is it the one and the same, or how we can look at them in a very different perspective? And one can be financially free without retiring from work, but not vice versa. Let us look how we can make that happening with a small investments and continuously planning and staying course and staying in the disciplined way. We can look at. I think there is a saying which says, why the rich stay rich, and there is a saying which says rich people stay rich by living, they are like poor. They are poor, but poor people stay poor because they are living like rich. Either way, it is not right. We need to have experiences in life. We need to ensure our money allocated right. And financial freedom is different to the different people. And it's like, we have our own goals, our own plans. I call it your GDP. That is your goals, your dreams, and your plans, and your ability to live in your own terms. This is where you get a financial freedom. And financial independence is nothing but you meet your financial goals and you accomplish what you want. And in this journey, you don't need to look out for money, what you need, and money is available to you, and how you can look at. And retire rich, it is all that with simple plan where you can look at, how your basic necessities you mean. Then there is a money available to you and you can leave a legacy. We can look at how this retirement can happen very differently. But end of it, basic rules of investment doesn't change. It is always how you can plan rightly. It is like, your spending plan, your saving plan, and your investment plan. You keep your experiences some part, and you keep your life basic necessities some part, and some part can go for a long-term savings. And that's where you can make you to get into the retire rich. It is then the principles again we speak on session after session. It remains the same. You're investing your money into the assets which can create a wealth, and right asset allocation makes all the difference how you can get that right. It's whether it's a equity, whether it's a bond, whether it's a real estate, whether it's a cash. And all that what we need to do is understanding your risk profile and making that risk profile count. And risk profile doesn't mean that at one point of the time, your risk profile during good times and bad times, and how your acceptance of those risks, how you can minimize that risk, how you can avoid times risk, and how you can transfer that risk. These conversations we can go on and we can look at. But there are two areas where something under control, something we can't manage, and which we can't manage, you cannot contain. Inflation is not under your control. All that you need to make your wealth, inflation hedged, inflation proof. Volatility in the market, yes, it can be managed with a disciplined, systematic investment plan. Markets are volatile by nature, but your mind and your emotions are more volatile. And what you need to do is stay calm, stay invest, stay put, and write your plan with one of the good advisors. And there is always a financial life cycle for each one of us. How we can plan for this financial life cycle? Whether you are a young earner, what you need, look at you've created your emergency fund. Just look at your short-term goals are there. and put your money for the equity in the long term at the early stage of life. And probably as a young earner, you would not have started your housing loan. You intend to. But once you get into the young family, once you get married, you get the loan and you get into the insurance, and you need to look at long term as investment. Then as you get into the middle of the age, maybe 35 to 45, that is the time in Indians, most of us, we plan for our retirement. Today we are talking about this retirement can start much more earlier if you have not started, or otherwise you can start from tomorrow if you are doing. And know how you can allocate your money and what kind of allocation, asset allocation can go, and how your retirement, that truly we call a golden age, truly it can be a gold. And there is a transition period of retirement. Your pre-retirement, most of us will think whether the money what we earned is sufficient, how we can move, and ensuring that your money is going to the safe portfolio. And post-retirement, I mean, equity is no, never say, because we live much longer. If somebody is retiring at 60 and somebody is living till 90 or 30 years to go, how this can be planned, this is the conversations we can run with our esteemed panelists. And you can put those your personal questions. Personal finance, a person is before the finance. Each of us have a different means, different way of living. If some of your questions we can answer, but most of your questions can be answered by your financial coach. And today we talk about financial independence, which means you have enough resources at your disposal, and you doesn't need to worry about money, and your financial goals you met, and you are not depending on anyone. This is where you get basic financial independence. And how you can plan the road to financial independence is, first you start with a dependency, and your lifestyle needs take a lot of money. Then you have a solvency, they're able to meet your financial commitments. Then how you can stabilize, here is the place where you can look at, you minimize the loan and you get into the zero debt kind, and then you can get into the financial security, right? Then that is a stage where you get at a sixth level the financial independence. Then you move to abundance, that is a great, you created a wealth, you no longer need to work for money, and all that what you need to is available with a passive income you created. You may not be active working, but your passive income is taking care of your entire life and your dependency. And it's like, financial independence for someone is living on your own terms, and like your independence can be defined. Somebody says it's living on my terms. So for somebody, financial independence could be getting a job of choice and which can pay well. Somebody to day-to-day expenses can be taken for. But at the end of it, financial independence is something all of us need to look at. Maybe if next 25 years is going to be an Amrit Kal for the nation, why not an Amrit Kal for each one of us? And why should not we plan for it? And just ensure what are the signs you can look at when you can say you have accomplished your financial independence. You have enough in your emergency fund, and you can buy whatever things you wanted to buy, and you can plan making a big purchases, but you don't need to look at money, and you know how much to spend, and you are saving money continuously, and you can pay bills. You don't need to postpone for your bills, and then all that you can get there. And what is the difference between retirement and financial independence? Retirement, it does happen. Retirement is one, you can't get a loan or something. It is a time which happens. It is a set goal. It is, if I can look at this, my GPS, my retirement day is set. All that I need to plan my journey can make better. And financial independence is a chosen one. You don't need to look at the date, how I can get what year. I met a person a week back when I was there with Amit Bhai, 4 days back. It's a person whom I met is a 25 years, just started a career, and he intend to get by 40, you want to get into the financial independence. That's where he's chosen his 40th year is a financial independence. And finally, financial independence gives a choice whether you would like to work later, or whether you can continue to work or don't need to work, and you can live for your passion. And retirement without financial independence, truly a disaster. And all that, you need to have enough money so that you can retire. Retiring is not at what age, retiring is at what money you need to retire. And today world is changed. We are a nuclear family. There's urbanization, and there is a book called 100 Years Work Life, which I always quote. It is Linda Grattan, who is a professor in London School of Economics, has written. Today we may have to even live for 100 years, and we need to work longer. And there is no social security. This is where rising cost and rising healthcare. That's where we need to plan for our retirement. And relatively we are living longer life, and work life is coming down today post pandemic. Some of us in the hybrid work, and we intend to work, and there is a great story of a great resignations. How you need to look at this reality to face, where have you checked your balance sheet, have you checked how your cash flows can be there if you are living for next 30 years, next 40 years. And retirement is a phase where your income stops but expenses continues. What all that you need to do is the right retirement planning. You ensure your passive income can become much more than the active income which you are getting today. And retirement sometimes is also a loss of title, loss of position. I think 3 days back, I was with one of the institutions where they are planning to do all the way retirement planning sessions for their employees. All that what they feel is their employees after 60, they should not get lost in the market. They should not have emotional loss. That's where the loss of title, loss of position, loss of identity. But how you can recreate, it's not just beyond money. It is retirement planning is beyond money. How you can plan for it. And this is an ultimate financial goal, is to get the financial freedom. And what you need to look at, your golden age, you have enough corpus. And most of the times we do a lot of assumptions, but whether these assumptions can come true, may not come true, how you can replan for it, whether you can look for your inflation related and inflation related corpus and the expenses, and you have less savings, and how you can get your investments right. And today's scenario, falling interest to rising interest, or like when in such situation, how you can do. And sometimes you intend to redeem quickly, and what you can do, what kind of risk profile, and your risk profile changes, what is that you need to look at. These conversations we can continue in the panel, and we can put those questions to them, and we can get those answers today with my esteemed panelists. These finances are very important for us, but money is just beyond. You need to have your work, health, relations, spirituality. Today we have ladder 7, Suresh ji, but we need to focus on these 7 things for his, your relation, your work, your health, your relationship, your spirituality, and finances is one part, and your living and your emotions. Set goals in each of these areas, and financial goals would be subset of these. If you can accomplish each of these 7, then your financial independence and your retiring rich is bound to happen. And it's not just money management is one part of it. And this is a where when income stops, expenses don't. What you need to do is, when your risk is reduced or your expenses for a long time, your cash flow, how you can plan it, and how you can plan between safety and liquidity and return. Because post retirement, every rupee what you have today is going to work for you. Then you need to ensure the capital is almost safe for you, and you need to understand what kind of financial frauds can happen, how you can leave those. You can bulletproof against those financial profits, and how you can access to your money, and later in, when you are not there, how your family can access to the money or wealth you have created, and transfer of the wealth to the next generation if you can plan. Let us understand. I think Suresh ji was with us in many sessions. He speaks about the will writing in his book. He has written plenty of things. If the God was a financial planner, and he says, how the Lord paves the way, and planning for the most important phase of life, retirement, he dedicated one exclusive chapter. And in his book, he also wrote, he has written about what is that millennials can do for it. And at mutual funds, to make life more simple, we have many ways where you can plan for the mutual funds. I think my colleague Amit ji is going to tell us how mutual funds can become a mutual fund for you. And you have a SIP, which can make a simple one, but makes a habit of investing, automating your investing, so that you are not bothered about that. And you have many options, and you have how you can play between safety, liquidity, and return. At the same time, you don't need to compromise on returns, you don't need to compromise on safety, you don't need to compromise on liquidity. All the 3 things structurally you can do. And but I always advise the right financial advisor could be very well. And its mutual funds are always regulated, and then you doesn't need to worry. And put into the 3 pillars today: financial independence, what are the investment mantras, and how do you retire rich, what kind of budgets you can follow, and how you mutual funds are for you for your retirement. We are going to put on the chat box. This is a magazine which we publish every quarter. It is a personal finance magazine. You can just download, and we do have a hard copies. We do share whenever it's required. We have in multiple languages, and this is the Freedom Plans. It's a magazine which we have put the link on the chat. You can download this. We can share this link with you. You can. It is just a PDF. You can quickly download. You have a fantastic things to read. It's a fantastic read for you to get there, and you can get. With this, I stop sharing, and happy investing. And I invite my panelists around. Thank you so much, sir. And thanks for joining. And with this context setting, we move on to the field. And I'll start with Suresh sir, because you are the one who started the retirement course, and course of retirement for all of us are inevitable. And if I approach that course, if I chart if I get into there, my navigation for my retirement is very ready. And before going to the retirement, today's theme on the financial independence, If I ask you a question, probably you can, probably before that, you can also brief what made you to start this retirement course, because you are such a visionary to look. I mean, today in India is young India, which we call average age of 29 years, and maybe 30 years down the line, the average age, and we should be, we can be, it should not be old Indians, but, we can call rich Indians. How we can do that, and you can share the thought process which made you, and what is that vision drive, and then you can also tell us what are those three important steps in the financial independence. Over to you, Suresh.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rao. And first of all, I must congratulate you for such a wonderful introduction. I think you covered a lot of topics very briefly and very succinctly, and gave a great perspective, to start with.
Thank you so much.
Coming to the retirement income course, it all started with my own retirement plan, right? So I believe that God has been very kind to me and has given me a lot of insights in investing. And I've shared that in my work career throughout with everyone. And SIP, as you mentioned, was one of the best ways to express myself on that subject. But having said that, I started realizing that what I've been preaching, right, is not really the way I will navigate this journey of retirement. It's a very different world as you think about retirement. And maybe I'll just make some comments on that, and then, we can continue this conversation. So essentially, my first realization was retirement is a very complex subject. And obviously, a sense of purpose, health, relationships, right, which I think are going to be the most predominant theme for most of us in retirement. Finance is one little speck, and an important spec, but if you get the first three wrong, whatever you do on financial planning is not going to be helpful. So that was the first major reason where I thought that this is important. Second, I also realized that as you age, you get the benefit of experience, and that experience gets you biases, right? So if your experience has been that I invest in real estate and real estate has done very well, you will continue to invest in those real estate even in your retirement years. So we all are full of biases. Like I had a very strong bias towards equities, and it's done very well. So obviously today I can celebrate equities are the best long-term bet. But the question I asked is, what if that is not true? So what if we go the Japan way, right, where the Japanese Nikkei has not touched its peak since 1988? That's the time it peaked out, and even for the last 35 years, the Nikkei is close to 28,000. So no growth at all. When I look at markets like UK, right, the FTSE first touched 7,000 or thereabouts in 2000, right? For 20 years, there's no growth in FTSE, or a very nominal growth in FTSE. So suddenly the question really came to my mind is that, okay, if all these assumptions were to come true or not hold, I will have a messy retirement. And the biggest of all, by the way, was what is the assumption you make to lead your regular expenses, right? So we all pick a number out of thin air, and nobody really sits down and does a zero-based budgeting. And as I was doing those numbers for myself, I started realizing there is one component which is fixed, as you mentioned, 50%, which is all your core expenses. And then there are a lot of discretionary expenses, right? And you can break down your discretionary as much as you want. So for example, some of that discretionary expenses are not genuinely discretionary, a vacation, right? So you may be okay to do a vacation in Lonavala and come back if you're based in Mumbai, but you need to go out somewhere, right? But yeah, if you had the money, you may want to go abroad, you may want to go to a better place. So there were a lot of assumptions around that discretionary expenditure as well. So the thing which really tweaked, or which got me really interested, was that irrespective of my age, I came to a conclusion that I need to add another component, and that component is of savings and investments. So today I treat some of my, expenses or some of my investments actually as an expense. I write it off. And the reason for that is the book which you mentioned, The 100-Year Life, right? That really caught my attention. And even if you're 100, and what if you live to 125? So there's always a long term, irrespective of that age. And if there is a long term, one needs to really save, with that in mind. So that was the genesis of my course. And essentially, if you look at the course is not about just giving you basic concepts. I think there are plentiful calculators in the market, and you need them because you need a roadmap. So I'm not, in any way saying that they are unimportant, because without a roadmap, you really won't get to the final destination that you have in mind. But more importantly, I think the game is, when you relax all those assumptions, how are you going to really actually survive? And it was all about practical life. And as I mentioned, that game is really played in your own mind with your own biases. Until you don't recognize them, you're not going to be able to build a great financially independent or a retired life, which is going to be fun. So that's the background with which I created this program. And I think that's a great way to really start and question your own assumptions before you go ahead.
Fantastic, sir. Thank you so much. And I mean, honestly, most of us we are blessed because that gives a direction. And majority of us, like for example, I used to work in my previous organization. We were to, I mean, the where you worked, it was we joined there. It's for the lifetime. We thought that we will be joining there and retiring there, and it was in those days it was a pensionable kind of it in the public sector. And my father was a teacher, and when I was moving to a private sector, he told me the very clearly, beta, like public sector and central governments you get pension, and other private sectors you get only pension. Be careful. And none of us have planned for it. It's and this retirement course will make us out of tension in getting into the some kind of my own pension. And with this, I'll move on to. But it's a fantastic work, Suresh sir, and I look forward wishing you all the good luck and look forward to be a partnering, supporting whichever the way we can look at, because all of us in the I mean, irrespective of the time period, somebody who joins today at 25 years, 30 years down the line, for some of us at 45, it will be the 15 years down the line, all of us are going to retire, and that has to be planned well. And we need to retire rich, retire early, and we need to retire happily. And then money is one component. If you are not having, you will never be happy. And when you are not happy, then you are ill health. Then when you are not at ease, that is where disease is coming in, and that's where we need to all plan. And with this, I'll go back and Suresh sir, it is always, there is a, you spoke about in your book, if God was your financial planner, there is an exclusive, emphasis for the millennials. It's a planning. I mean, this is for the millennials and money. And there is also a chapter which you mentioned about planning for the most important phase of the life. And that is for the retirement for everyone. But across the world today, people talk about fire. Let me reiterate my phrase. People only talk about fire. And while talking, there is a fire, but the continuing that fire, there is no fire, because you are not very sure which assumption is going to come true. And this has been spoken from 1992, if not now. 1992, there was a book by Vicky Rabin, which is called Your Money and Your Life, which is created a first concept about the fire. And not only the West will talk about not just one fire, they talk about three fires, which is called fat fire, lean fire, and barista fire. And it's all that which it says is you sacrifice today to live your tomorrow better. And today's world is very different. I want to live today, and I also live tomorrow better. Means, I want to bucket for my experience, but I want to bucket for my future. And keeping that in mind, my question to you is how this fire is a concept, can take us to the next level. Is it practical, or somebody can plan for it? And youngsters who are joined us today, the millennials, today really they can look at retiring early. Just 3 days back, I was addressing a group of newly inducted employees. When I took a poll, majority of them doesn't want to work beyond 15 years. And, more than 60% of them in that poll, they were not, don't want to work. And 15 years, they want to get that financial independence. This financial FIRE, financial independence and retirement, really, your thoughts around it, sir?
Yeah, thank you, Rao sir. So as far as FIRE is concerned, I would want to dwell on the FI portion first, and then we'll also talk about the retiring early portion. Because the first thing that we need to achieve is the financial independence. I think that is something of a concern for every one of us. So, I mean, when we start working, we are looking forward to doing meaningful work. I mean, that is very ironic. When we start working, we should actually be doing meaningful work. In whatever work we do, it should be meaningful work. So the first thing that we need to understand is that in the here and now, we don't know. I mean, retiring at 40 or retiring at 45, I mean, that is into the future. I mean, who knows how long we are going to live? We may be 25 now, and 15 years later or 20 years later, we may want to retire. But the fact is that we don't know whether we are going to touch that point or not. So the first thing which I would want to talk about is we have to live a meaningful life here and now. Okay, so people are looking for meaning in their 40s and 30s and all that. So it has to be here and now. So that is something that I would want all the participants to very, very seriously consider. It should be meaningful work here and now. So the second thing, as far as financial independence is concerned, okay, is that what is the meaning of financial independence? Okay, Rao sir, you told right in the beginning that for some people, financial independence may be not having any loan. Financial independence may be measured by something else, I have my 3 square meals a day, and that is financial independence for me. It can be absolutely anything. So the point is, most of the people do not have a definition of what it means by financial independence. So as far as the FIRE concept is concerned, one of the ways they mention financial independence, I think it will probably resonate with most of us, is that yeah, you are able to live reasonably well today. And again, you talked about fat fire, lean fire, barista fire, which I will touch on just now. You are able to live a reasonably okay life now, and in the future, you are able to, without working, most of the time, without working, you are able to do all the things that you want in life till the age 80, 90, 100, whatever that may be. So the first thing that we need to do is, what is the meaning of financial independence, and what is the meaning of living a life that is acceptable to you, and what is that you really want to do in life? So based on that, then you will have to look at how much you want to spend and how much you want to save. So now you talked about the concept of lean fire. So one of the first principles of FIRE is to spend the least amount possible and save the most amount. By some measures, most of the FIRE proponents talk about saving something like 70%. See, whether that will work for somebody or not is open to question, because expenses and goals are very, very personal. Not only personal to that person, it is personal to that whole family. The family has to buy into that FIRE concept. So that is the concept of lean fire. I mean, you spend as less as possible, and you save most of the amount, and you invest accordingly, so that you can retire in 15 years, like you are mentioning in your example. So there is also another thing called fat fire, where you don't want to drop too much in terms of your expenses, but you are going to be aggressive in terms of investments. Probably the aggression is in terms of the way that you are going to invest. But the only problem, as far as this strategy is concerned, is that you are assuming that you are going to get a certain level of return. You are assuming a certain level of inflation, and you are going to reach a particular corpus. So that is not, that is not a foregone conclusion. So as far as the fat fire also is concerned, it will work only for those people who have a very good income. Okay, because they want to spend like every other person, more or less, but at the same time, they want to retire much, much early. So probably a 2-income family who are earning well, fat fire will work. The third concept which you touched upon is barista fire, where they are not working full time, but they are working probably part-time or on a consultancy basis. So probably the expenses are being taken care of by the consulting income or any part-time income, and their corpus will continue to grow, as they are not going to withdraw anything from that corpus. So these are the 3 very broad strategies. There can be multiple strategies around this by which you can actually make it work for you. The last point which I want to say is, please understand what is the life that you want to create. I mean, a lot of people live in a fantasy world. They talk about 15 years hence, I'm going to do meaningful work. Today, I'm not doing meaningful work. 15 years hence, I'm going to do meaningful work. First and foremost, even assuming you are aspiring for FIRE, it has to be meaningful work from day one. So if you are going to earn a slightly lower amount today, and you're not going to have any tension, I think that is the first thing that you should aspire for. Even if the retirement date goes up by maybe another 5 years or another 7 years, 10 years, that is okay. But the important thing is meaningful work, because we are what we have in hand is today. We don't know about tomorrow. Whether we'll open our eyes tomorrow, we don't know. So the point is, meaningful work is something that we have to do. We have to have a plan. We have to decide on what is that we want to achieve in life, and then we have to review this. For FIRE to work, we have to very, very constantly review what we are doing in terms of what is happening in the environment and what is happening to our investment. Only then FIRE will work.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for the such detailed analysis about fat, lean, and traditional, the barista fires. And it's a fantastic way to look at how each of us. I'm sure audience you would have got where you intend to. If you are one of those, you want to retire early, whichever the age you are, maybe 15 years down the line from today, if you are looking at retirement, how you can extrapolate this and how you can look at all that. What you need to do is if you are getting a meaningful work and if you are also saving rightly and you can have a moneyful retirement, then that is the time where you are retiring. Getting back to this retirement, Amit ji, I'll come back to you. Today, we talk about, we take pride in India. We have the young Indians, average age is under 30. And, but 60% of current working population is expected to, retire by 2050, it seems. So there is a study, and which is also talking about 40% of Indian citizens by 2050 will be the senior citizens. And there is a study conducted by one of the fund houses. PGIM has done some study on the retirement, and it's which says today 59% of the Indians, urban Indians, are not saving for their retirement. That means only 40% of them, 41% of them are looking at their retirement. And rural Indians, it will be much higher because awareness level is reasonably little lesser. And one third of the population, they don't have an alternate income. Something happens, then they are going to struggle. And then there are other pointers people they have their lot of responsibilities while they're retiring. In such case, what is that you advise somebody? What age one should seriously start thinking about retirement and planning about retirement and acting about retirement plan?
So, first of all, I would just add to the statistics that you were sharing and quoting one particular report that was done by the 4 finance sector regulators, that is RBI, SEBI, IRDAI, and PFRDA, jointly with Imperial College of London. And what they discovered was, as far as when they inquired about planning for retirement, 13%, 13% of Indians were actively saving for retirement. 10% for planning for retirement. 33% had no planning, and 44% are not even expecting retirement. Now, that was an eye-opening data according to me, and a little bit scary. So first of all, the way I would look at it is, those who are actively saving, are they saving as per a plan or randomly saving? That's the question that I would want to understand. And similarly, those who are planning, have they only planned or started planning, or have they also started saving? So planning and saving both eventually need to come into play, and then only something would happen. But even when we combine these two, it's only 23% of Indians, or the size, 23% of the sample. 77% have either not planned for retirement or not even considering retirement. Now that's scary. The report further asked participants, what would be your sources of funds in retirement? And roughly 52% of participants, that's a scary number, 52% of participants said children is their source of fund in retirement. Now, I think that is a very scary picture. And yeah, additionally, another 25% said don't know what would be the source of funds in retirement. Now, that's really where the country is. And as you rightly mentioned, it's only a few years away that the large, the bulk of the population which is young would become the bulk of the population retired of retired people. And that's where planning has to be done as soon as possible. And just to quote Warren Buffett's words, something that I really love and appreciate, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years back. But if you didn't do it then, the next best time is today. So those who have not done it, you can start planning now. Borrowing from what both Suraj and Suresh were mentioning, whether you take a particular approach, take the different fire definitions that Suresh explained, whether it is lean fire or fat fire or barista fire, whichever approach you take. Now, that's entirely up to you. But then, if you take a lean fire, don't kill yourself today for a better tomorrow. if you are taking that fat fire approach, understand the risks involved when you are trying to earn higher returns on your investment portfolio. So these are some basic rules. Again, what he said is brilliant, that from day one, you have to enjoy what you are doing. I mean, it has to be a meaningful work. Otherwise, the fire within will keep burning you. I mean, you'll be stressed out, burnt out. And that also doesn't help in any manner. Going back to what Suraj was mentioning, focus on those assumptions and keep questioning your assumptions. A lot of time we fall in love with our own assumptions and start assuming that that is gospel truth. It doesn't work that way. I think he shared some brilliant numbers that all of us have heard that equities are best for long term, but there are instances where it's not been so. So I have to question, what if I land up in that kind of a situation? Is there a plan B? Is there a plan C? I think this is what you do, and that is part of the planning. But if you've not done it so far, do it today.
Fantastic, Kamitji. Thank you so much for that quote of Mr. Warren Buffett. If you have not planted a tree, this is the time, and whatever the age you are in, you can start. And we do this program called My First Paycheck for the final year grads, and also a lot of employees who are just inducted. It's going to be a workshop, and where we say, we show some statistics to them, some data points. All that what you need to do is your first one paycheck itself, you can start for your retirement planning. Then your life will be much more easier with a short term little corpus. You get into that discipline and you don't know kind of money which you are going to create for it. I think it's a fantastic way to look at, and thank you so much for it. I mean, back to you, Suresh sir. There is always a saying when we talk about financial planning, when we talk about financial independence, when we talk about retirement, most of us, most of the people, when they say, I have a very modest income, and within this, I know, how do I find मेरा आजकल मेरा इनकम से मेरा घर नहीं चलता है, अभी सेविंग के बारे में आप बात करते हो, then it's a bigger term kind of it. And sometimes, of course, we underestimate or overestimate, but same person can, if there is a tomorrow morning independence sale comes in Amazon, he will go twice the requirement and he can do. And last week I met a guy unknowingly, over a period of last 3-4 sales, he bought more, and he, after one of the sessions, he brought his 6 credit cards, and he has broken in our meetings. He has teared it into 2 pieces and do it. Means this is the kind of people. It's always in the mindset, what kind of money you are getting or what kind of. In your opinion, whether the people with a modest income can looking at achieving the financial independence first, and can people with a modest income can plan that they can retire rich. In fact, I had an experience at a small town called Hubli in Karnataka, and one of our financial advisors way back, 20 years back, when we are doing some induction program for this Navy bird, the defense people. And at that time, he had come with one concept. When I prepared 30 slides, he said, please don't bring these 30 slides. Give me one Excel sheet. If you are putting 10% of money to the Provident Fund and another 10% for your retirement fund, your life is done. That's as simple as that. And if somebody has done, it is done. But somebody has not done, it's good. But otherwise, we need to believe in one chapter in your book which says everything in life happens for a reason. And if one door closes, another door opens. And if my retirement money is there or not there, I'll depend on my child. Retirement, my child can earn for it, as Amit said. And what is that you suggest for the modest income and mindset of the modest income?
Rao sir, looks like you have read my book much more than even I remember, boss. Yeah. So coming to your question, you had asked me, okay, what do people with modest incomes, what can they do? How can they ever achieve financial independence, right?
Right.
So here is a very funny thing. So there are a lot of people who think, or they claim to earn modest incomes. And these are not people who are earning 20,000 or 25,000. These are people who are my clients who are earning, say, maybe 3 lakhs, 4 lakhs, sometimes even 5 lakhs per month. And they think they're earning very, very modest income. And they also claim that there are so many expenses, including education, their vacation and EMIs and so on, and they're not able to save too much of money. So the first thing is the modest income is also something which is actually a very, very flexible thing in the minds of people. But what I would again come back to is there are controllables in life and there are non-controllables in life. So your inflation, your investment returns and things like that, economy and things like that are non-controllables. Nobody can predict where it is going. we are focusing always on non-controllables. All of us, all investors are typically focusing because they tend to ask the financial advisors, what is my return? Where is the inflation? Where do you think the economy is going, and so on. What is actually controllable are two very simple things. One is expenses and one is the goal. So if you are able to control, and that is something which is very much in your hand, and very, very surprisingly, people tell me that expenses they are not able to control at all, and goals, how can they control? I mean, they are not the only people who are involved in the goal, whether it is a vacation or whether it is a house or whether it is a children education in India or abroad. They don't have too much control. So if things you are going to control or you can potentially control itself, you don't have under control, then I mean, then how can we talk about retiring early? So the fundamental thing is there is the well-worn quote, which is you have to cut the coat according to your cloth. It's very as simple as that. And I think largely Indians are very, very good at it. Whatever be the level of income, whatever I have seen, is that typically people know how to live within their means. There are, of course, a lot of people who are now borrowing, they are living it up and things like that. But the point is now, if we understand that this is going to be my trajectory as far as my income is concerned, and I'm going to live for a certain period of time, and if you have a plan in place, if you know what your expenses are, if you know what your goals are, and if broadly you know where you are going to land up in terms of the corpus and whether it can take care, I think even a person who is earning a modest income can actually achieve financial independence. It's not possible maybe that this person can retire early. I mean, if a person is having a lot of commitments and they are having a modest income uh, and a lot of expenses, lot of goals, then possibly one will have to retire maybe at the superannuation age. But can they attain financial independence? In my opinion, yes. So proper planning, proper reviews, proper oversight is required from time to time, but it is possible to achieve financial independence. Now, the next question is in terms of retiring rich. Boss, retiring rich is, I mean, rich, that word rich itself has a lot of connotations. See, we all actually attribute too much to money in our lives. While money is a bedrock and it is absolutely required for everything else in life, but money is not everything. So, I mean, fulfillment, happiness, peace of mind, these are very, very important things in life. A lot of people, they say you cannot buy sleep, you can buy a bed. You cannot buy happiness. You can probably go on a vacation, but you cannot buy happiness. So these are fundamental things which we need to understand. So money cannot solve all your problems. Your mindset has to change, and you have to understand what is that you really want to achieve in life, and then you have to define what is the meaning of rich for you. And first and foremost, I'll flip the argument the other way. I mean, running too much after money is actually going to bring you a lot of worries and tension. So if we want to retire rich, I think we should not run after money too much. Be disciplined, be regular with our investment, have a plan, review the portfolio, and don't worry too much about only money all the time. The world is so abundant. The world is so full of so many experiences. I think we should try and do those things, which normally does not take too much money, but at the same time it gives you happiness, fulfillment, contentment, and peace of mind. So that's how I would say.
Thank you so much.
But also,
Ajit,
but also
please.
just want to add to what Suresh was mentioning, and this is an observation over the years. A lot of times people come and ask us, show me an investment that can beat the others. I want to outperform the markets. I want higher returns than everybody else. But majority of the cases I've seen people underperforming the market averages as far as investments are concerned, but they outperform the averages when it comes to their personal inflation. So we are able to beat the government inflation simply because the way government calculate the inflation is the same basket. Well, for example, a mobile phone, how much is the change in the cost price of that mobile phone is how government would calculate. But the government would not know if I am changing my mobile phone every 6 months or every 3 months. So that's where, I mean, a lot of discussions happen about the investing side, which is beyond our control. Not much it gets discussed on the expenses side, which is largely in our control, something where that rhymes so well that Suresh was mentioning.
Thank you so much for bringing that. And probably this is a lifestyle inflation which we bring in and we can make it, and which makes your life other side. Whether you have a modest income or whether you have a highest income, your lifestyle inflation eats away if you are not having mindful of it. That's where both of you are bringing in it. And I can narrate one story which has really happened in my complex. These are the two guys who work as a part of our security team who came all the way from Bihar. They were there with us for the last 5 years, I think. They just left soon after the pandemic, and their pay package is run in such a way. There's a modest income means they're at the lowest income. Honestly, they get 24,000 rupees per month, and we have an agreement with them. If they are ready to contribute 4,000 from their pocket, that 24,000, we add another 4,000 to them, and an SIP we can create. And this is an 8,000 of SIP we did for these guys for the last 5 years, and which has ended up substantial money for them at the end when they are leaving this job and going back to their town, their hometown. And with the modest income, if you have that discipline and if you contain your expenses, and as both of you said, mindful of your expenses and have a lifestyle inflation lesser, I think it is possible that financial independence. Thank you so much for it, sir. And Suresh said, looking at all these conversations, all of us, we need a capsules, we need simple formulas. And if there is a simple formula, I can look at simple formula for financial independence. Normal formula, we talk about savings minus income minus expense is equal to savings, which was my good for my father's age, but my age it is not good. All that I need to reverse that formula. My income minus my savings, which converted to investments, is equal to my expenses. Then that is one. But is there is any other formula, or this formula can work for financial independence also?
Yeah, so in fact, the way I would suggest is, you have to really arrive at one number in your mind that really tells you is the corpus number, which makes you feel comfortable, right? And it all starts with, what do you think your expenses will be? And when you work backwards, there's a very simple maths that depending on the withdrawal rate that you set for that corpus, right, this formula can arrive. So just to give an example, if you want to have 10 lakhs of income every year, and you're going to withdraw 10% from your corpus, then 1 crore is sufficient. But if you're going to withdraw only, you're going to only withdraw 5%, then the number changes. So that way it's very easy. But I must give you one very practical way which I followed in my life, especially for the first generation wealth creators, right? Because so when, Suresh and Amit were talking about this modest income, I always feel that any first generation wealth creator is always with modest income. Right. And the reason is very simple. The first generation wealth creator is saving through a mortgage for his home. Is today, for example, I joke with my kids that when I started, doing my financial plans way back in late 90s, the biggest expenditure was retirement in my mind. But today I find the biggest expenditure is kids. So you have to make a choice. Do you want to have kids or do you want to retire? Both don't exist. And I'm not surprised that a lot of people say that kids is what they're depending on, because the cost of education itself has gone through the roof in a big way. But having said that, I really found that one simple formula which I used, I call it the 10% rule for want of any other number, because I felt that the 10% adjustment is very, very easy to do in life. And that's why I called it the 10% rule. So in my career, I saved 10% of my take-home salary and 50% of the bonuses, right, into equities. That's it. And rest is history, because equities did very well during my lifetime, and it translates to a huge amount of wealth. So even if you're the most modest of earners, right, you will find that this formula works absolutely well, because the 10% adjustment is not a very difficult adjustment, but the others can be fairly challenging. So if I have to give a thumb rule, this is what I really go by, as a message.
Fantastic, sir. It's a very practical and very fabulous. As long as you're working, 10% of your salary can go towards it. That is allocated for your future. That can create your future. And in any case, this 50%, your variable pays, bonuses, your sudden wealth stage, anything can come to you. It's suddenly somebody gifts you something, and then there is a surprise which is coming in. That 50% of it, in any case, you can allocate, and that can create a huge wealth. And also, you can minimize your debts. I think you put it in a very simple way, and it is a very practical and which is possible. I think I'm so glad with that formula. And coming back to you, Suresh sir, there's a question for some of us, financial independence, pre-retirement. And, again, I go back to your book as chapter, which says, Arjuna, awake. If I have not done, and, there is one chapter which speaks about, if I am not retired, I can awake. But if I am already retired, now what is the question? I mean, and then I have seen people, and some of them, there is a retirement is also sometimes it's a mindset. Again, this I met an investor. This is as early as 4 days back. He's retired, he's a substantial retirement corpus, but psychologically in his mind is he is not getting his monthly paycheck every month. He thinks he is very poor. मेरा जो चेक HDFC से स्टेटमेंट वो मैसेज आता था वो नहीं मिलता है मुझे, then he is not very sure where it is lying. But how we can look at retiree people can think they can they can accomplish their financial independence, and but they feel they are not retired rich. But there are two classes. Some they are literally not retired rich, but they want to have some kind of a financial independence. I had one of my bosses who felt he is not retired rich. Then he was in Mumbai to retire, and he changed his geography to where he want to work, Mumbai to coastal Karnataka. I know. Can you guide something on this?
Yeah. So let us take the situation of a person who has just now retired. Okay, and they, by their own admission, they feel they have not retired rich. Okay, so I mean, the fact is that they have retired. Okay, the first thing which I would say at that point in time is there are people who have retired and who may be able to seek further employment or consultancy or whatever it is. So if somehow they are not very comfortable with the current situation, they could consider that. Let us assume for a moment that that is not possible, maybe because of health reasons or just that they don't want to further indulge in further employment. So if that is the case, they really have to go back to what is the meaning of a comfortable retirement for them. Is it only, I mean, the problem for most of us today is that we are defining everything in terms of only money related goals. So is it money related goals, and how much money do I want is what we have to think about. And just going by what you just now said, one of the options which is available is that if suppose we are living in a major metro city, maybe Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, or some big city like that, there is no earthly reason why you should continue to be in that city, especially if your retirement corpus by your own admission is not really enough. So you can move back to some other smaller town or maybe your hometown where you will be comfortable. The only minus point of that is that maybe you may have a lot of friends and other people with whom you have developed bonds. But that's a hard call that one will have to take. But if you are moving to your own hometown, probably there are also further contacts and many more contacts which you can also develop. So that is one of the way by which you can actually make your money work harder for longer. The second thing is, I mean, a lot of us, including me, I mean, we overestimate the amount of money actually required in retirement, because we kind of extrapolate what we are used to spending in our pre-retirement years completely into retirement. So what we have seen typically with our retired clients is that for the first 5-7 years after retirement, there seems to be a fair amount of expenses which are continuing. In fact, a lot of people who retire, I mean, they are very, very well off, very, very good in terms of health terms. So they want to continue traveling, or rather the traveling actually goes up because they feel that, okay, they have the time now. They can actually travel and see places. They can go and visit relatives. They can do all those things. So for the first 5 to 7 years, we see a spike in those kind of expenses. And after that, it gradually settles down. By the time they reach maybe 68 or 70, it gradually settles down. And if we look at the 70s, the travel is there, but it is not at the same level as when they were at 61 or 62. So it settles down to a much, much lower level, which actually we are not really planning in terms of expenses when we plan for the long term. So it's very, very important for us to understand what is the, we have to estimate it correctly as to how much corpus will be really required. And the final thing which I will say is, let us assume for a moment that the corpus is actually small. Yeah, they're actually small. Even for the basic living expenses and basic goals, it is not really enough. Then you will have to cut the coat according to the cloth. There is nothing much. If somebody is retiring with say 20 lakhs or 25 lakhs, and it has to last for maybe 15 years or 20 years, it's going to be rather difficult. Then, of course, children, I mean, as a retirement plan itself will have to be worked upon. One last thing which I would say is there are a lot of people who retire who are asset rich but cash poor. So one last thing that people can also do is that they can look at, as a last option, they can look at probably selling of the house and living in a rented place, and the amount of money that they will get from probably selling of a house can be a huge one, depending on what kind of property they are selling. And that can actually see them in relative affluence in their entire retired life. So those are the 4 or 5 things which somebody can do. But the primary thing which I would ask people to look at is, I mean, don't focus too much on money. Focus on experiences. Focus on living a good life. Focus on things which money itself cannot buy, but it can actually things which can give you satisfaction, happiness. Focus on those things. There are plenty of those things which don't require too much money.
Thank you so much, Suresh, sir. It's indeed insightful, and all those who retired, probably look at what is the kind of retired income you are getting, what kind of assets you have today, and how you can redeploy, deploy, and relook at. Sometimes a lot of money may be lying in SB account. Sometimes it will be multiple accounts, and then then all that you need to put it into one place. And indeed, we have also put in our chat section. There are 3 books which we have put it. One is Freedom Plans, what you can look at, and there is a financial planning journal, which you can put all your assets at one place and you can write. This will also help you to get your net worth right, and you can download that. With this, I'll go back to Suresh sir. Suresh sir, we always talk about lifestyle or asset allocation depending on the age of etc. But for accomplishing the financial independence, is there is any specific asset allocation one can adapt, and that can help them to reach to that financial independence?
Yeah, so Mr. Rao, the way at least I think about asset allocation is that there are 2 parts to it. One is asset and then allocation. So if you don't have an asset in place to begin with, and I think that's the context in which we are discussing this for people who are first generation wealth creators,
Right.
modest earners. I would really believe that at that stage in life, the whole idea should be to really maximize your wealth, and that only happens, the least that you need to do is to really get a large portion into equities to really get there. I don't see any other instrument that I think can really potentially do that. And so even, when you see other kinds of investments where people can invest and generate higher returns, but equities, because it represents ownership of a business, right? Eventually, as businesses grow, that wealth gets reflected. So I don't think so it's akin to gambling or you're taking a big risk. You're really owning businesses. And within that, we know that large businesses are more stable and they grow at a steadier pace, while smaller businesses may be more risky but can accelerate much better. So I would say the next level of allocation within equities, participating in all segments of the market, right, becomes fairly important. So at least I do believe that, generating, I don't go by thumb rules here, but I do believe that young people, especially as they are generating, even if they were to mess up in the initial years, their wealth is still to come, right? So I feel that you should really transition to what we call the typical asset allocation model, is once you have some assets in place. And to give you a context, if somebody is really close to retirement or almost retired, any number that is below 30% in equities is going to not help you meet inflation or beat inflation, right? So at all stages in your life, you would need to have some allocation into equities for sure, because then only you will be successful. And I'll give you one simple example. The worst period in equity markets was in 2008, when the Nifty itself dropped 65% in 1 year. Now, with an asset allocation of 30% to equities, that 30 would have become 15, but the balance 85 would have grown. So what I found was that from an overall corpus perspective, you did not drop beyond 10%, though the market just went for a toss completely. So I feel that now that's not a level of risk, which is too much. Though, yeah, if you look at the equity funds, they were all down 50, 60, 70%. But reality is that the following year, everything came back, pretty strongly. And also in that year, you did not experience that as much. So I give this, I like giving this small formulas. I have a great fascination for this number 10, right? So I say that when you're about to retire, go for the 10-10-10 rule. Right. And what is the 10-10-10 rule? You aim for a return of 10% on your investments, right, over a 10-year period, because year to year you'll have variations. and with a maximum drawdown of 10%. That means at any point in time, you don't lose your initial wealth beyond 10%. And as I mentioned, if you do a 70-30 kind of an allocation to debt and equity, you will probably meet this 10-10-10 rule fairly easily.
Fantastic, sir. I mean, you made it very clear, and the 10%, the 10 rule, it's a really interesting part. And I like the concept of you mentioned about first generation wealth creators. Probably all the audience, my request is, if you are part of the first generation wealth creator, ensure your second generation is learning more about the financial literacy bigger. Otherwise, whatever you converted, second generation should start from there, not deplete from there. I mean, that's the onus of responsibility. And coming back to you, Amitji, I mean, whenever we are doing this asset allocations, when we want to put it for the higher return, even for the achieving the financial independence, we do a lot of assumptions. And every assumption will come with a risk happening or not happening. And what are the risks you feel we should look at when we are looking at a financial independence? That is my first question to you. And second question to you is, how this mutual funds per se can help us to reach, accomplish our financial independence?
A brilliant question. Now, as far as the assumptions are concerned, or the risks associated with those assumptions, I would go back to what Suresh was mentioning about not focusing too much on money, but rather focusing on life. So first of all, fire, if somebody is looking at it, fire by itself cannot be the end objective. Financial independence allows you to live the life of your choice, and living the life of your choice is the ultimate objective. If that's the case, defining that life is far more important. Otherwise, I mean, I'll just quote a couple of examples from Hindi movies. In the movie Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara, Hrithik Roshan's character is shown to be slogging, and he said, at 40 I want to retire, but till then I would keep working. Now, at that point in time, that heroine comes and tells him, do you even know that you will be alive at 40? So Zindagi may not, I mean, you may not get the life again. So live today and live tomorrow. You can't kill yourself today for a better tomorrow. On the other hand, there was another movie called Tara Rampam, where the character of Saif Ali Khan was living a very lavish life, and suddenly a race car driver that he meets him with an accident, and the income stops. Income stopped, but the expenses and the debt continued. And in that process, he had a miserable phase that he passed through. Now, in that case, he was living all the life today without worrying about tomorrow. Eventually, what you need is a balancing act between the two things. So that's number one. Number two, when you look for that financial independence, the biggest problem, and you quoted Gaurav in the beginning also, the biggest problem is the burden of debt that we carry, financial debt, the loans, the liabilities, and that is a drag on a lot of things. So one of the things that one would suggest is lighten that burden. A lot of times we, and I'm not saying completely get rid of loans, I'm just saying focus on lightening that load. So if you want to run longer, if you want to really go for a marathon, you carry less load on yourself, and that becomes a load on yourself. The third thing is the expenses, and that's another risk, the lifestyle related expenses, and that's another drag on the entire journey. Now, having said that, then we come to the various assumptions. I see a lot of questions being asked on what is that number that I become financially independent. The moment you are dependent on a number, you are not independent. Let's understand that. If that number is going to make you independent, then where is the independence? Let's understand that it's an ever-changing number. The world is evolving every day. Assumptions that we start with are a good starting point, but as we see in the GPS, once we want to go from one place to the other, and if we get stuck in traffic or we take a wrong turn, suddenly the GPS is recalculating. So we need to keep recalculating. The time line keeps getting adjusted, and that's the reality of life. I don't think in February 2020 anybody knew that a month down the line half the world's population will be locked in the houses. There are too many uncertainties. There was just one example. but there are too many uncertainties. So let's embrace those uncertainties, which means we need to start with assumptions, we need to start with goals, but with a full clarity that those assumptions and those goals are going to undergo a humongous amount of change, and we need to keep navigating in that world. So the risk is fixation on those goals, fixation on the fixation on the action. That's another risk that we take, and then bring focus to the investment portfolios, etc. Now, because we are talking about a reasonably long period, even those who are retired, if they retire at 60, they are looking at a life till 85 or 90. We're talking about 25-30-year period. So during that period, whenever we are looking at any long-term goal, there is a short-term and there is a medium-term in between. If we take care of those short-term and medium-term needs, then only we can plan for the long-term. So all the risks which can play out, are likely to play out. Do we have a provision for those risks in the short and medium term? What are the risks? So somebody who's earning, the risk is losing that income or dropping the income. Is there a provision for that? Now, what can cause that loss is death, disease, disability, or loss of employment. And for the first three, there is insurance available. For the fourth, you need to build a contingency fund. So there are basic concepts in financial planning which allow you to do that. But how much should be the contingency fund? We all keep talking about 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. The risk is a lot of people don't know what is their monthly budget. So in most cases, there are risks which are outside of us. We keep talking about it, we keep focusing. A lot of times the risks are internal to us, and those risks are also far more important actually than the external risks. So broadly speaking, if we take care of these risks, then once again quoting the study that I was referring to sometime back, the 4 finance sector regulators conducted that study in 2017. Very once again interesting but scary numbers. The question was, who do you depend the most for a financial advice? 40.5% spouse, 30.4% myself, 25% friends, family, and neighbors. If that's where we are going to for advice, let's make it very, and that's a huge risk. I'm saying that's a huge risk because number one, when we go to an advisor, we are actually looking for 2 things for trusting the advice. Number one, the competence and the character. Now, as an individual who's uninitiated in financial journey, I can't, let's say, if I were to evaluate the expertise of Suraj or Suresh, I don't have that expertise. How can I evaluate their competence? So what do I look for? I look for integrity. And who's got a better, more interested in my well-being? My family and friends. So we tend to go there. They have great intentions. They do not have the competence. And that's a problem. We need both. So this is problem number one. Problem number two, a lot of times people say that, oh, so much information is available on, I can do a Google search and find out. Let's also remember Google is a search engine and not a research engine. You can get all the information in the world, but even Google can't answer whether that information is correct or not. It's a repository of lot of information and a lot more noise. Go to a competent, qualified financial advisor. You need to do your due diligence in selecting a good financial advisor, but please don't do it yourself. That's another huge risk. I think these are some of the risks that I would look at. I'm not even talking about financial risks because that is secondary. Primary is this.
Thank you, Amitji. Probably the second one which I put to you is how the mutual funds can become your mutual friends in accomplishing financial independence. Right.
So that's a nicely structured investment vehicle. It's not an investment avenue. It's an investment vehicle. Once again, a lot of times people ask this question: how much money do I put in stocks and how much should I put in mutual funds? Well, you can use mutual funds to get an entry into stocks. You can use mutual funds to get an entry into gold. So mutual fund is a vehicle which gives you access to that asset category. And that's one of the biggest advantages of mutual fund, there is a variety available. The second advantage of mutual fund is it's highly transparent, and that transparency combined with a strong regulatory framework ensure that some of the risks get minimized. Add to that, the transparency also comes with, and especially I'm talking about open-ended mutual funds, that transparency also comes with exit option. So I can transact at any point in time. So timely information is available through the transparency, and I have an option to take an action. So that's another wonderful combination. Third, the structure and the regulation provide safety. The portfolios are diversified, and I can invest very small amounts. I can invest periodically. I can withdraw periodically. So that entire transit cash flow can be structured in line with my own requirements. Take, for example, one of the questions that I read was, in retirement, should we look at dividends from a balanced advantage fund? That was a very specific question. My answer to that would be no, please don't look at dividends. Go for a systematic withdrawal plan, because that's a facility available. Dividends are decided by the asset management company depending on the available distributable surplus. Whereas, withdrawal plan can be structured the way you want. When you want to stop, you can stop it. If you want to increase the amount, you can do it. If you want to decrease the amount, you can do it. That's another advantage of flexibility. Now, if you add all these benefits together, then identify your own personal specific requirements, your goals, your journey plan, which is the financial plan, and you will have the conveniences, facilities, and options available to choose from the entire basket of mutual funds. Which means start with the clarity of what you want, and then most of it is available, and then the portfolio will be customized for your requirement.
Thank you so much, Amitji. And friends, I think, Amit was talking about the mutual funds coming in your way to independence. And this is one booklet which we gave you. Please do download. There are multiple stuffs which is said about how mutual funds can help you. It's an interesting read, I'm sure. I mean, look forward. Each of you can not only download, but you also read. Coming back to you, both of you, sir, Suresh sir and Suresh sir. I'll start with Suresh sir. I mean, Amit spoke about financial advisor. You need to have a right advisor. What kind of role an advisor can play in achieving the financial independence? How you look at that?
So this question is
Yeah,
for me
you
or
want me to go
Suresh?
first?
Yeah. Anyway, so I think Suresh sir being also advising for longer, I'll go with Suresh sir first. That's a better way.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I think the role of advisor, is very, very vital. And unfortunately, today there are a lot of questions which are raised about, what kind of an advisor should I go by? And we find that from a regulatory standpoint, you can go through a mutual fund distributor who's only capable of doing some incidental advice as per law. And we have but the advantage is, of course, you don't pay directly. The mutual fund company pays them through commissions. While on the other hand, if you want to pay a fee and get an advice for yourself, you go to somebody which is called as the registered investment advisor. So if you look at the maths in India, the number of mutual fund distributors and the vis-a-vis RIAs, the ratio would be 1:100 or 1:200, right? So we don't have as many RIAs in the country. But irrespective of whom do you go to, right? I think what is important really is that, as even Amit mentioned, right, that integrity is the number one thing that you look for, and competency is the second thing that you look for. And competency, in a way, you measure by the years of experience and the qualifications that they may have. So if somebody's done a CFP or done a CFA or anything which is relevant from a financial sector perspective, that can add tremendous value. Experience of that advisor itself, how many years they have been in the business, can be of tremendous help as well. So, and if you get it through a referral, nothing like it, because you know that people who have used them, and so that becomes a great way to start with. But if you look at the role, I still feel managing emotions of people, right, is the biggest role, because investment journey is not about just creating a plan and putting it into practice, but the reality is, so I'll give you one simple example. I started my SIP way back in 1996. right? And after 51 months of saving every month into that fund, the fund NAV had dropped from 10 rupees to an all-time low of 730, right? So all my investments were out of money. Now, in today's day and age, I can guarantee you that leave alone 51 months, if somebody is out of money in the first year, everybody would have said, oh, you picked a wrong scheme, let's switch. And, you know, you would be out of that fund for life, right? But not that I knew that this is a great fund, nothing of that kind. I don't think so. I really had that judgment at that time. But yeah, somewhere I had a faith that, you know, markets will do what they have to do. So I must just continue the journey. Now, this particular fund moved from that NAV of 7 to 140 in the next 7 years, right? So, and of course, it became one of my smartest investments that I'd done in my career. Now, this journey cannot be traversed alone. That I can guarantee you for sure. Without an advisor, you would have been out of it long time back, and maybe you never really reap the rewards of long-term investing.
God bless, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for putting it in a very, very interesting way. I mean, I like that icing on the cake of your eyes for the advisor. I mean, who can come with an integrity, and they can come with competency, and they can come with kind of experience. Then that can become better. And definitely, advisor is plays very vital role in managing the emotions. Managing emotions are very important. Coming back to you, Suresh sir. Again, this is the last time I refer to your book. You put there is a role of a Sarthi in your book, that is an advisor. What is that role of Sarthi? I think we always say, mutual fund sahi hai, but Sarthi zaruri hai. That's the way I look at it.
Correct. So the other two speakers, panelists have talked about integrity and competence. See, as far as competence is concerned, to some extent, you will be able to understand by what programs they have done, what education they have done, what kind of experience they have, and even probably somebody is referring to you. So in a sense, it talks about the integrity of the person also, but certainly about the experience and expertise. See, as far as integrity is concerned, to a great extent, it is left to the individual concern. And that is where SEBI had come out with the investment advisor regulation to put a fiduciary responsibility on the advisor. What is a fiduciary responsibility? Fiduciary responsibility is the advisor who is registered under the Investment Advisor Regulation 2013 will have to place the client interest above all other interests, including their own self-interest. And if there is any conflict of interest, they will have to disclose that over and above that. So this is a very, very fundamental thing that SEBI has done, because they have taken the guesswork out of the equation as far as the integrity is concerned. So if I am a RIA, I necessarily have to be demonstrably, on the client side. I will have to do what is best from the client's point of view. So that is how the new advisor has been created, who are called RIAs. The role of an advisor in a person's life is very, very important. Like Suraj sir just now said, there are times when the investors can get carried off and they can behave irrationally. At certain points in time, they may exit out of a fund, which potentially at a future point in time can catch up and give a better return. See, a lot of times it is discipline and patience, which is very, very important for achieving anything in life, which definitely is the case as far as money is concerned. So one of the things which we do as a Sarathi is to ensure that clients don't make that mistake, make a lot of mistakes. So that is the first thing that I tell all my potential clients, is that the first thing that I will do is to ensure that you don't do those blunders. And whatever blunders you are doing to fix those leaky buckets, that is my first thing. Only then the bucket will fill. So the role of an advisor is important in that sense. The second thing is, in the case of a family member, even assuming they have competence, in that case also, they are again carried away by the emotions which are there. Okay, we are all emotional people. In a sense, we people who are professional advisors, we stand apart. We are not emotionally affected. We are going to look at the family, their goals, and what needs to be done, any hard calls which needs to be taken also. We will be in a position to advise, as opposed to somebody who is an involved party, who is a family member. So that is also one of the very, very important things as far as what an advisor does. And of course, the competence portion actually kicks in, because irrespective of how competent a family member or a friend is, the person's maybe universe of people who he or she has seen is going to be rather limited. So in our case, we have done thousands of plans. We have seen hundreds and hundreds of investor scenarios. We have seen people who are 22 and 25. We have seen people, even today, we are having people who are above 85. We have seen people who are spinsters or people who are bachelors, people who are married, divorced. I mean, all kinds of situations, all things that ever happen in a person's life, we have gone through it at some point or other. So the kind of experience that we have developed, expertise that we have developed over a period of time because of the experiences that we have had will be unparalleled, and we can actually use that experience. We can leverage that experience for the benefit of any investor who comes to us, and we will be able to add tremendous value to any investor who comes to an advisor.
Thank you so much, sir. And I think, clearly with this, I mean, before I go further questions, I'll start with the audience questions. And friends, I think we have got a lot of questions on your Q&A. If there is something more, you can please add on to it. Now I'll go with the panelist on a quick, some kind of a rapid fires of these questions so that we can answer as many as possible. I'll come to you, Suraj sir. This is a question coming from Janush Pillai. I am at age 50, have invested in equity mutual funds through SIP. My question is it worth to invest in PPF for self and family for next 15 years to get the returns better than FD?
Well, at age 50, PPF obviously has certain inherent benefits, in terms of savings. So you get the Section 80C benefit, and obviously it's a government guaranteed return that you get. But my personal view has been that, it all depends on where interest rates are at a given point in time. So today, for example, we find that the yield on 10-year GSEC, right, which is almost at about over 7%, very close to 6.5, 7 range. Maybe at those points in time, PPF with 7.15 looks more attractive. And so there will be situations when you will find that some of these rates are actually superior to PPF as well. So it's essentially the way I really recommend is you must always have a PPF account, but how much money you will invest should be a function of where interest rates broadly are in the market and what options you have in hand. So there will be times when you can get far better returns outside of the PPF, and you can leverage that at that point in time. So always keep your options open and don't get boxed into saying that, okay, I will do PPF irrespective, or I will never do PPF because I find other investment options are better.
Fantastic. So thank you so much. And I'm sure this answer is useful to you. I mean, this is a question to Suresh sir for you. It is a question coming from Mr. Das. He says, I'm 35-year-old participating in mutual funds when I was 22 years. Right now, to invest lump sum of 20 lakhs for 20 years, which one will be a better, balanced fund or flexi fund, or my risk profile is moderate to high? Kindly suggest. I mean, I know, it is not easy for one question until and unless we know many other things. But if you give a generic answer, what it could be?
Yeah, I mean, like you just now pointed out, it is going to be rather difficult for me to actually say, and it's a big sum of money. Like say 20 lakhs is a big sum of money. And suggesting like that a flexi cap fund or a balanced fund is going to be rather difficult, because I need to know, he has mentioned that he's 35 years old. So that is one data point. But what is that he has done? What are the goals? What are the expenses in the family? What is his risk profile? Risk profile he has shared with us. So, I mean, I can only go with that two data points. One is 35 and one is the risk profile is moderate to, moderate to aggressive.
Yeah.
What is the risk profile, sir?
Moderate is that.
Moderate. Okay. So if the risk profile is moderate to high. So if the risk profile is moderate to high, and if the overall asset allocation for a moderate to high person who is probably 35 years old, for lack of data, I will just go with, let us say 55-60%, maybe 50 to 60% in terms of equity investment, considering his age. So depending on whether he has already put in that 55 or 50 to 60% in equity, then he can allocate in either, I would suggest a flexi cap fund or a large cap fund, considering that it is modest to high. So, and in our case, especially as far as large cap funds, we suggest passive funds. One can look at Nifty 50 for a large cap allocation, and I would suggest a Nifty 500 index fund for a multi cap allocation, flexi cap allocation. if the person, if he's interested in actually actively managed funds, it is better to do some more research on which actively managed fund he would want to choose. I mean, I'm not here to play that passive is better or active is better. Largely speaking, large cap fund category, passive is better. Other categories, active funds probably may be a good choice at this point in time. So that is where I would leave it.
Thank you so much, sir. And I'm coming back to you, Suresh, sir. This is a question, little again generic. It is coming from Dyke Justin. How much money would somebody needs to have considered that he is financially independent?
Well, this is the toughest question to answer because it's so, specific to that particular individual and their own lifestyle, expectations. Do they want to really leave a legacy behind? There are too many questions, that would come for that. But having said that, I always believe that a good framework to start is that whatever your expenses are, I do believe that 1/3 of those expenses are normally non-negotiable, right? So the least you have to get to is that 33% or 40% of your, monthly expenses. And as I mentioned, I always begin with the withdrawal rate when I think of that question, that, okay, if I'm assuming that I want to withdraw 5%, right? So now let's do the maths very quickly. At 2.5 crores, you can fund 1 lakh of monthly expenditure at a 5% withdrawal rate. And now the assumption here I made is that you're able to create an overall portfolio return of about 8%, because the balance 3% you keep compounding and use it for adjusting against inflation rest of your life. So which means that if you're running your household today with 1 lakh, then next year you can increase it to 1 lakh 3,000, 1 lakh 4,000. So some adjustments you're able to do with that respect, and then that money may last forever, right? Because you're able to really be on that path where your wealth also is compounding at the same time. So I would say that the quick maths to be done here is very simple. So if you go with this 5% withdrawal rate with an 8% overall return, then for every lakh you need 2.4 crores, and you can do the math for yourself, which suits you.
Fantastic, sir. Thank you so much. I'm coming back to you, Suresh, sir. I mean, this is Anshu Rastogi. What should be the equity to debt ratio for 60-year-old planning who is likely to live till the age of 90? Whether rebalancing should be done annually, and equity coffers not run untouched, says for 10 to 15 years till debt lasts. And third one is, how can one reduce risk in equity if something like Japan happens in our equity markets?
Actually, a very, very, very good question. I'm happy that he has asked this question. See, normally as advisors, for people in the retirement stage, depending on their situation, depending on their risk-bearing capacity, we go for anything between 10 to 40% in terms of growth assets, equity assets, ideally. So if a person is somewhat conservative or moderately aggressive, I would go for maybe anywhere between 25 and 35%. If a person is conservative, I will go probably anywhere between 10 and 20% in terms of equity. Now he has talked about a person living till age 90, and which is a fairly long period of time. At the same time, it is a realistic period considering what is happening today. So if we look at it from that point of view, and if you want to keep equity, you want to compound equity and you want to live from debt for now, I think that's a very good strategy. But a certain level of equity allocation has to be there. A slightly higher level of equity allocation has to be there. Otherwise, for a very long period, like say 30 years, it probably cannot last. So once upon a time, when in my father's time, he used to get 14%, 15%, even banks used to give 12, 13% kind of return. And we used to have bonds and all that, which used to give anywhere between 15 and 18% return. So those days are probably never going to ever come. So we have to definitely depend on equity as far as the returns are concerned. One very comforting thing which I can say about equity is, while we don't know whether equity will perform in 5 years or 4 years or 7 years or things like that, if you really keep it for 10 years or more, typically over a long period of time, equity does tend to do well. There are going to be 5-year periods, there are going to be 7-year periods where equity has done badly. So in his question, he has said, if I'm willing to keep equity for 15 years touch equity only after 15 years, is that a good idea? I think that's a very well thought out strategy, actually. if you are going to leave the equity for compounding for a long period of time, and probably at that point in time move some portion to debt. So I think probably I've answered. Rao sir, have I missed
Yeah.
any portion of that
No,
question?
no, perfectly fine, sir. Perfectly fine. Thank you so much. Now I'll move to the debt. Amit ji, you can answer that, and I also
Yeah.
give one question to you also.
Yeah,
And
just wanted to
yeah.
add to what Suresh was mentioning. Just only one additional point. While Suresh talked about keeping that money in equity and allowing compounding, I would strongly recommend that instead of buying stocks, put that money into a equity mutual funds growth plan. Because what happens in a growth plan is the dividend paid by the companies would also get reinvested, and you get the compounding benefit on the reinvested dividend also. Normally, when we have direct stocks portfolio, the dividend comes in the bank account, and sometimes we are not in a position to invest for various reasons. Either we are tied up somewhere, or we need cash flow at that point in time, and lose that extra compounding benefit. Keep it in the growth plan and allow your money to compound for that period.
Fantastic, sir. I think question to you only, Amit ji. This question about debt mutual fund. This is coming from Prasanta Kumar. Need some advice while selecting the debt mutual fund during or after retirement.
So what's the purpose of that investment is the primary question. What is the objective? Now, if I'm looking at drawing income from a portfolio on a regular basis, then it has to be a debt fund, a systematic withdrawal plan from a debt fund. But then, do I really want to seek higher returns from that debt fund is a question that I need to ask, because the moment you seek higher returns, there are a couple of risks that you need to take. It is either longer term maturity bonds where the interest rate fluctuation in the market and your portfolio would value, NAV, would keep moving up and down. So whether you want to take that risk or not. On the other hand, if you do not want to take that risk of long maturity, then you will be probably going for a portfolio where the credit risk is high, and credit risk, a higher credit risk, sometimes can spell disaster, because if the money is not returned on time, the value shrinks, or even if the default doesn't happen, or the company honors all the commitments, the high credit risk bonds are typically illiquid in the market. So to that extent, you need to play in that manner. My suggestion would be for your immediate income requirement for, let's say, maybe 2 to 3 years, choose a debt fund portfolio which has a reasonable average maturity. I mean, those details are available in the fund's fact sheet. Maybe 2 to 3 years average maturity should be fine, not longer than that. And look at high credit quality portfolio for your income requirement, this SWP, for the next 2 to 3 years. And after that, whatever income requirement will be there you may want to take slightly risk. However, only if your risk profile permits that. But start with low maturity portfolio and high, credit rating portfolio, safer portfolio to begin with. Start with safety first, and then keep going up on the risk as your profile permits and as your need as your requirement dictates. But beyond that, don't be too aggressive on the debt side.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amit. And due to paucity of time, I'll run a little faster. Some of the questions which I am not taking, which is either generic or we may not be in a position to answer, it is related to the stock, or it could be anonymous attendee asking something which is little not very crisper, but straight questions I am taking it. And this question, Suresh sir, for you, this is coming from Alexander Thomas. Sir, how to attend Suresh sir's course?
Well, it's an online course, and all you have to do is log into www.retire.surajkare.com, and you will get access to my course. So, and it has calculators, it has how you build your asset allocations, how you build your roadmap. And the whole idea of doing this course was, I believe retirement is a serious subject, and you convey that seriousness, by creating a course. So that's the reason. So you can easily access it online. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
A request, can you just type that URL in the chat box so that it benefits everybody?
I'll do that, yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. While the URL is being typed on the chat box, please have a look at, you can look at that. And Thank you so much for many of those compliments, which I am not reading out. Each of you have written so well. And this one question, Suresh sir, I think I have the second question of Mr. Justin, which says, sir, I don't know about my financial budget. It's a huge risk on me. Today I am learning from this educational program. Thank you. But how can I be financially independent when I don't know about my financial budget?
So is it for me?
Yeah, it is for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you don't know where you are going, any road can be a good road. Okay. So the first thing is we want to know where we want to go. So we need to understand what is our expense. I mean, in the first year of retirement, and I think Mr. Suraj had covered a very basic ballpark rule as to how we can estimate how much wealth we require to fund a proper retirement. Okay, so he had given that example of 2.4 crores, where 1% is the withdrawal rate, 5%. I mean, 5% is the withdrawal rate, 1 lakh per month, and it is growing at 8%. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing that we have to see. So the first thing we have to estimate is what is our expense today, and if we can actually project it into the future. Typically, what happens is, at the time when we retire, whatever be our current expenses, of course, you will have to inflate it by inflation figures. Whatever is your expenses, it typically tends to go down by anything between, say, 20 or 25%, even more in some cases. So that is the expense that we need, and that expense we should be in a position to fund for the next 25-30 years. So there are calculators which are available on the market. So if you have that figure, then you will be able to arrive at what kind of corpus you will require at the time of retirement. So it's very easy. It's available. I mean, you can do it yourself, or any person in the financial services or advisory space can help you in that. It's not a big thing at all.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. And with this, there are some questions which are like, some of these questions which are coming, people of telling their retirement expenses, and which is longer. Somebody got a 4 crores in 2 years. My humble advice with each of you is you need to sit with your personal financial advisor, because in generic answers cannot be given open forum, and don't write your current situation in that way. And please do that. And here is one question coming to you, Suresh sir. Probably I'll take this as the last. Surya Narayan Balakrishnan. My question is to Mr. Suraj, that which is one is better for retirement planning, whether to go for LIC or mutual fund. My age is 48 and I will retire at 60, and I am working with a private company.
Yeah, so I won't say that I'm biased, but I think on perspective, I'll answer. Clearly, mutual funds stand apart, in terms of retirement investments. And the reason for that is very simple, that when it comes to insurance companies, typically you're going to use annuities to generate your regular income. And annuities, so there is a concept called Saral Pension. So Saral Pension is an annuity where it starts immediately, and you get a fixed income flow. And the purchase price, as we call it, what you pay for getting that annuity goes to your nominee, right? So that's a very popular annuity option that people take from insurance companies. Now, because that is fully taxable, what you find is that whatever you will get in terms of your annuity, you will be really paying taxes on that as well. But mutual funds will really enable you to create a very flexible portfolio, right? And even if you want to replicate that same annuity with a little higher return, you can buy a target maturity fund, which really has underlying government securities of up to 25-30 years. So I do believe that in my mind, at least when I look at the two comparisons, I feel mutual funds stand apart, especially when it comes to investments in retirement.
Thank you so much, sir. And with this, before I conclude, I invite all the three and us to start with Amit ji. One final word for you for the day, to one takeaway if you want to give it to the audience.
I think
one advice.
Don't focus too much on the number. Focus on the life that you want to live, and then use the numbers to do the calculation, planning, etc. And all the assumptions that you start with are only assumptions, guideposts. Keep revising those assumptions from time to time.
Thank you so much, Amit ji. And focus on your life. Focus on this one. I mean, life for me is LIFE. That is living in financial empowerment. All that, if you get a right advisor like Suresh sir or someone, you are into financial empowerment. If you are not following that life, LIFE will become life living in financial entanglements. but focus on your real life, what you intend to do. And coming back to you, Suresh sir, what is your advice for the day?
Today we are talking about retirement and retiring early and things like that. So one of the things, and you had also mentioned, and very rightly so, that for all the other goals, we can actually borrow money, borrow. I mean, we can take a loan. If you want to buy a car, if you want to buy a home, you can take a loan. But for retirement, you cannot take a loan. That is a standalone goal, and you will have to fund it yourself. So this fundamental thing that we will have to keep in mind, we will have to start investing some money from the salary of month number one, some money. So what happens with most people is that they tend to uh, put aside the retirement goal. They spend on everything else, and it suddenly hits at 45 or 48 that they have not done anything for retirement, and that is when they start running. And at that time, the amount of money that they will have to put aside is actually humongous. So keep in mind that retirement is something, I mean, it's a certainty. I mean, if we live to the age of 60, it's a certainty. I mean, we don't know whether we'll live to that age, but most of us will live to that age. And so it's a certainty. So we have to be cognizant of that, and we have to start from day one. And if we start from day one, I think achieving that good retirement corpus, which will see us in comfortable affluence, is not really that very difficult. So uh, planning from day one is very, very essential. Discipline, regularity of investment is very essential. SIP is available today, makes life very, very simple today.
Thank you so much, sir. SIP can be a pathway to your financial freedom and independence, and choose it right and make it up and getting there. Coming back to you, Suresh sir, your final words.
So my final words are very simple. Start a dedicated account for retirement, right? And periodic basis ask this question that from this account, how many months of expenses can I really live? Right? You'll find that you'll be surprised how quickly you get your retirement act together.
Fantastic, sir. I think, you put that with your course in mind. I know I would like to say, taking the cue from your last word is, I can say, charting your retirement course is all that you can do is how much you are going to start with, what is the kind of retirement, how long your money to be last, and how much you want to be end up with it, what kind of returns you are looking at, what kind of ROIs. It could be of a retirement, it could be a multiple ROIs. ROI could be regularity of income, ROI could be reliability of income, ROI could be rate of interest, ROI could be rate of inflation, or ROI could be rate on return of your investment. It's how you can focus, and then how much risk you are taking it, and how you can beat your inflation, and how you can address the interest rate cycle. With that financial, your retirement we always call is a golden age. Before making all this possible, then your golden age is fantastically golden age. Once you reach that golden age, for me, you need to bring the gold in your golden age. That is the GOLD after retirement. The G is you need to gainfully engaged. O is you need to optimally invested. And L is your lifestyle. I mean, moderate it as much as possible. And the D is bring the divinity, not the distraction. Get the discipline in place, then the golden age can happen. That is the true financial independence. With this, we will sign off and hand over to Mr. Nachiket. I profusely thank all the three panelists. In fact, every word what they spoke is going to be a very learning, and I may probably go back and listen carefully as an audience once again to each of them, because it's a wisdom, and I'm so glad they took time and came out and joined us today. I really thank all the three, and it's on a Sunday we have a Surajji, and it's like Sunday with the Lord Aditya, and we are from Aditya Birla, and we have Sureshji which is coming in, and all that in financial independence we need is infinite money, and Amit is there, and with them three of them are Trivedis, three Pandits. And over to you, Nachiket, and I thank all the audience, wishing you as happy investing, stays have a good health, and of course get your financial independence right and focus on your retirement. It is not very difficult. Probably take some time to read that book, circulate among your friends. If there is anything we can do from Aditya Birla, please feel free, write to us, we can get. And some of you are asking for the hard copy of the books. Please share your addresses, we can definitely send it to you. There is a mail ID which is already there, you can write to us, we can share. And wishing you all the good luck. And over to you, Mr. Nachiket. Thanks to the entire Manorama team for this. Thanks to three other panelists.
A big thank you to everyone. A big thank you to everyone for being a part of today's program. As Mr. Sadagopan said, you can get a loan for everything. but you have to plan, save, and invest for retirement. There is no shortcut to it. The best time to start planning and investing was yesterday, but the next best time is today, as everybody pointed out. It's extremely insightful session for me. Hopefully today's session gave you a lot of insight on how you can manage your finances, how you can better invest to attain financial independence and plan retirement well. Take care and have a good day. Wishing you everybody a healthy and wealthy year ahead. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Nachiket. Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks to
Thank you.
taking time.
Thank
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Nachiket. We'll get Shri sir, we will take off, then we will be in touch offline. Suresh sir, thank you so much once again.
Thanks,
Bye.
Ashwin. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.